Hey everyone, super sad day at the loss of our friend John Young and our mentor. It's an incredibly sad day. Derek rang me up and let me know. I hadn't heard, and so he rang me up and we were both having a chat and both upset about it. We thought he'd live forever. I mean, you always do with the people you care about, the people you love, those who have been closest to you in your life and helped you or mentored you or whatever. John was like a big brother figure to us. I know with a lot of us, early YTT members, the original six or probably the original dozen. For me, he was kind of like a big brother figure more than a father figure, which I'm sure he became to the YTT team members and whatever as the show carried on for its almost 20-year run. Unbelievable. I'm incredibly sad. It's very hard to find the words to say. Derek is very upset about it too. And I'm sure all the fans must be, out of their minds with just absolutely stunned at the fact that he's gone. I spoke to him wouldn't have even been 12 months ago. There was something that he was concerned about and he messaged me and I messaged him back, yeah, all is okay, everything's fine. And then we spoke. I rang him up, we spoke on the phone. I just wanted to reassure him that everything was fine. And he sounded good. He sounded happy. I mean, we could see that he was getting on a bit, but people nowadays live into 110 and whatever. So you look at people in their 70s, even 80s, and you don't think really that they're overly old anymore. It's kind of not the way that you see it. So, for him to be suddenly gone, pancreatic cancer was what took his son Craig, who was also my friend. We were good mates many years ago. And that saddened him greatly. And so for him to have a short battle, the family said, with the same thing. Wow. So, the whole world is going to miss him. He was somebody who Derek and I, and in fact every one of the Young Talent team members, owe a hell of a lot to. Doesn't matter who you are as a team member, or anybody that appeared, I guess, in the Talent Quest section of the show. John always acted like a mentor. And I remember the day Young Talent Time came about, I'd known John. I met him through Evie Hayes. I don't know whether I'll be making statements and things. As I've gotten older, I don't really do many interviews or anything anymore. I live a bit of a more quiet life, quiet existence. But if any of the news outlets want to use part of this video, feel free to do so. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Derek's very upset. I'm upset. I think every one of the Young Talent Time family will be upset. His own family, Fleur and Anna and his lovely wife, they'll be devastated, no doubt. So he was an incredible. I met him, as I said, I was only about 12, and Evie Hayes, the beautiful Evie Hayes, who went on to become a judge on Young Talent Time, and my mentor, my manager at the time, for many years, and remained a great friend up until her death. We remained very, very close, and she thought the world of John, and she introduced me when I began to be managed by her. She introduced me to John Young and Kevin Lewis, so Lewis Young Productions. And we got on fantastic, and they saw in me what she saw. And we had a lot of, I did lots of television with John. I'd known him for 2 or 3 years prior to Young Talent Time. And I did his morning TV shows, the cartoon show that he did. And I did lots of shows, live shows with John, lots of things. radio stuff that we do together and all sorts of stuff. And so I remember the time when the idea for Young Talent Time came about. I remember that very clearly, like it was yesterday. There was John Young, Kevin Lewis, my dad, and myself, and I was only little, so I was 12, but I looked like I was 8 or 9. And it was the days of the little kids should be seen and not heard, and I was like that, so I just sit in the corner and listen to the adults speaking. Even though John was like a big brother to me, but I'd listen to them speaking, and I remember John and Kevin saying something about, we want to utilize John's talent and Jamie's talent together. How do we do that? That'd be great. And my dad, I remember it like it was yesterday, said, well, we've just come from Brian and the Juniors on the 7 Network, which is incredibly successful, ran for about 20 years, 30 years. It was a massive show. And, John could act as host, as Brian Naylor did, but John sings. And, Jim could be the singer, one of the singers in the show. We could get other kids. And I remember John and Kevin said, that's a great idea, because that could be something like the Mickey Mouse Club. And my dad said, yeah, very much so. And they said, well, how do we, go about contacting the other kids? And my dad said, I'll give you their phone numbers. And they said, okay, we'll get them to audition to join Jim as our founding member on the show, which I was always proud of. And John was happy with that too. He said it was a special place for me to hold within the, context of Young Talent Time. As a television show, to be the founding member. And I was always proud of that. And I remember that, when Young Talent Time came about, and the kids that were in the show were kids that were from Brian and the Juniors. There was Rod Kirkham, Vicky Broughton, Deborah Byrne, Philip Gould, and Jane Scarley, who joined me on the show. And we worked together so well, so easily. John and Kevin knew, obviously, how to pick the right team to kind of complement each other. And I think we did. Thank God. I think we did. And we had a lot of fun doing that show. And I remember John speaking to me on the plane to Sydney many years later when we were doing the Kerry Ann Kennelly morning show. Christmas thing, I think it was. And I remember him saying to me about YTT and saying, Jim, he said, your success internationally so quickly really helped the show to kick on. And I said, well, without the show, would I have had that success internationally? So we helped each other. And I remember talking to Deborah Byrne, mentioned the same thing, said you and I were really great for that show at the beginning. We had quite quick and big success, and the show was great for us, so that it was a symbiotic relationship. And I said, yeah, that's true. But every single one of the 41, 42 kids that came after us, including my brother Derek, Trevor Hindmarch, Karen Knowles, Tina Arena, Bevan, Greg, so many of the kids, Danny Minogue, I think I said Danny, did I? They didn't drop the ball. They never, ever dropped the ball, and they continued. They carried it on, in a sense. It was like passing the baton to these really great guys who just kept it going for almost 20 years. So the show was great for them, for all of us, the YTT kids, and for anybody that appeared on the show. And we were good for it, that symbiotic thing, and it was wonderful. But the catalyst to the success of the show and our success, certainly one of the big influences and mentors in my life was John Young. And so to find that he's, no longer here after a battle with pancreatic cancer is too sad. It's too sad. Yeah. So I think the guys would allow me. I hope for those guys that don't get a chance to make a video or make a statement, the other YTT kids, Derek and Bevan and Bobby Dreesen, who's no longer with us, sadly, and Julie Riles and, Juanita, the lovely Juanita, who's, and every one of us that was in the show. I'll say on behalf of us all, thanks, John. We love you. Thank you for everything that you did for us. May you rest in peace, and much love to the family.